Donald Trump back in the news. Does he ever go away? Not really, nor should he. But in this case, he's now facing the Justice Department. They're coming after his taxes again, folks. Every which way the man turns, they're going after him. He wants they want to make sure he doesn't run for office again. Boom, impeachment. They want to indict him on tax charges. Okay, they go after Weisselberg's grandkids in a private school somewhere in New York City so they can get to Donald Trump. The list goes on and on and on. And so there's been a big battle over the taxes. The Democrats want the taxes. They've wanted them for a long time. I don't really know what they're going to do with them, but the government now, because it's under Joe Biden, has flip-flopped itself. The Justice Department originally said, no, we're not giving those over to the Democrats. Those are private tax documents. Those, you have no business with those. That was what Donald Trump's Justice Department said. And now that's going to be flipping. Joe Biden takes over. We get a new woman who's in charge of the Office of Legal Counsel. She drafts a memorandum saying, well, yep, here you go, whatever you want, Democrats. They're Trump's tax records, but he's not president anymore. There's a new chief in town, and we're going to swap this back over. You can comb through whatever you want. So let's go into this. We got a headline here from the Justice Department, or from Politico, says that the Justice Department says that Democrats are entitled to Donald Trump's tax returns. And we have a Democrat named Rep. Bill Pascrell extremely excited about this. Says, quote, it's about damn time, he says. Now, he's head of the Ways and Means Committee, which is going to be important here because the Justice Department is going to be justifying it on that basis. Basically, this guy's part of the Ways and Means Committee. There's a precedent for that, and it's now available. So this was written over the weekend on July 30th by Brian Fowler over at Politico. It says the Justice Department ruled on Friday that the tax returns from Trump should be released to the congressional Democrats. The administration is not going to hand them over themselves, though. Trump can object to this. This is a reversal of a legal opinion that came out from the Trump administration. Department said that lawmakers are entitled to information under an arcane law allowing heads of Congress's tax committees to examine anyone's private tax information, right? Trump administration said you can't do it. Politico says new sheriffs in town, they reverse the course, they reverse the law. They find this old arcane law. Hey, if you're on a tax committee, a subcommittee in Congress, you have a carte blanche to whatever you want. Go get it. Up to you. Have fun. Go hog wild. The chairman of the House Ways and Means Committee has invoked sufficient reasons for requesting this information, said Don Johnsen, who we're going to talk about. Now, this is just sort of a summation of what's happening here. Let's learn quickly about Don Johnsen. You may remember her, right? This is what she looks like. She is now assumed office. She is the incumbent Assistant Attorney General for the Office of Legal Counsel. And you may remember the Office of Legal Counsel. It's sort of like the executive branch. It's like they're a lawyer, right? You know how all of you are very well prepared with your lawyer in your speed dial on your phone. All of you are. I know you are, because it's better to know them and not need them than it is to need them and not know them. It's good to have a good lawyer in your back pocket. But just like you can just call your lawyer and say, hey, I got a question about this legal issue. Can you help me? The executive branch has something similar. They've got this woman. Her name is Don Johnsen. She's over at the Office of Legal Counsel. And so as soon as Biden or Merrick Garland, they call up and they say, hey, we've got a question about these experimental vaccines. Can we mandate these things when they're still in this experimental status? Yes or no? What do you think about that? And of course, Don Johnsen comes out and she wrote this opinion that said, yeah, no problem at all. Whatever you need, no problem. She posted this back on July 6th, right? That says that the FDA cannot prohibit private entities from imposing vaccine requirements that are subject to emergency use only. That was previous. We've already talked about Don Johnsen. We know her well. So Biden and Merrick Garland, they call her up again. They say, God, you did great work on the vaccines. So just to confirm on that, you said that we can sort of mandate this for anybody anywhere. Yeah, that's what I said, guys. No problem. Perfect. All right. You're our lawyer now. We love your work. We got another question for you here. Donald Trump. She goes, oh, I know. The worst. And they say, I know, but we got a plan. Don Johnsen says, what do you need there, Joe? Joe says, we got to get those taxes. Merrick Garland shaking his head. Yes, get them. Don Johnsen says, let me see what I can do. So she goes back to her quarters deep in a bunker in a basement somewhere, gets to work on her little laptop, and she drafts this memorandum. She says, okay, here, I figured it out. She goes, okay, how about this? We're going to go over to U.S. Code, Section 6103 F1, Title 26. Perfect. She says, okay, when we go into this, it vests congressional tax committees with a broad right to receive tax information from the Treasury. Perfect, right? So she's just combing through there. She's got all of her other little, bookworms just combing through the U.S. code, finds it. Says perfect. It embodies a long-standing judgment of the political branches that tax committees are uniquely suited to receive the information. Committees, however, cannot compel the executive branch to disclose it without satisfying the constitutional requirement that the information can serve a legitimate legislative purpose. So you see what she just did right there, right? She says, yes, I need to find this little provision in the code that allows me to go get it. Boom, got it. 6103 F1, Title 26 U.S. Code. Got it, nailed it. Basically says that anybody who's on a committee, as long as they have a legitimate legislative purpose, they can go get those tax records from any private individual, essentially for any reason. But it's got to be a legitimate legislative purpose. See that? So we have a limiting principle there. So now she's going to give us some framework in order to analyze this case. They're going to take a look at the Democrats and say, oh, okay, who's on this subcommittee? Oh, you need this. What's the purpose for? Let's see. Let's dig into it. In assessing whether it could serve a legitimate legislative purpose, the executive branch must give due weight to Congress's status as a co-equal branch. Like courts, executive officials then must apply the presumption that the legislative branch officials act in good faith and in furtherance of legitimate objectives. Okay? So now you have to ask yourself this. As somebody who's a Democrat, as somebody who's watching this show saying, Rob, you're mildly entertaining, but I disagree with you often. You're sitting there saying, okay, we know the standard. They can get it if they're on a tax committee, and as long as it's for legitimate objectives, and as long as it's being done in good faith for a legitimate legislative purpose, then it's fair game. And all the Democrats are going, oh yeah, totally. Yeah, it's in good faith, no problems at all. We just have a couple questions. And she says, yeah, no problem. That's great. That's great. Well, when one of the congressional tax committees requests tax information and has invoked facially valid reasons for its request, the executive branch should conclude that the request lacks a legitimate legislative purpose only in exceptional circumstances, okay? So when they send a request over and it looks good, then the executive branch should just say, well, we should comply. Always, unless there are exceptional circumstances. So here they say the chairman of the House Ways and Means Committee has invoked sufficient reasons for requesting the former president's tax information. Therefore, the Treasury must furnish the information to the committee. Okay, so perfectly legitimate, good faith. They're just, look, they have some questions about the U.S. tax code, and they don't like, billionaires sort of escaping the tax code. So they just want Donald Trump's, but they're not looking at anybody else's. Just Donald Trump's. All right, so we know who Don Johnson is. Now let's take a quick look at what's going on in this opinion. We're going to go through it. We got the most of it in that slip opinion, but I want to see if we can tease out here what else is going on. So this is from the introduction, memorandum opinion for the acting general counsel for the Department of Treasury. So they got a written request from the chairman that came in. They want tax returns for 8 Trump-related businesses. Why? Why do they want it? Chairman Neal also sought the IRS audit histories and work papers associated with the returns. He explained that the committee was, quote, considering legislative proposals and conducting oversight related to our federal tax laws. Including the extent to which the IRS audits and enforces federal tax laws against the president, right? So they're just doing, it's just research. That's all it is for. The IRS is responsible for processing and conducting tax law enforcement in this country. So you have Ways and Means Committee. He just says, no, we just want to see what the IRS does with presidents. And we just happen to need Trump's because he hasn't disclosed them to us. And so we're going to consider legislative proposals. And we're going to conduct oversight. And so how does that sound? And Don Johnson over there at OLC says, yes, that sounds great. It's perfect. It's exactly what I need. As long as it's legitimate legislative perfect. You got it. You're thinking about some perfect, right? It's like when you go to lunch with a friend and you talk nothing about business, and then at the end of the lunch they say to you, how's business? And you say, it's great. And they say, perfect. We talked about business. So now I can write off this whole lunch. And they write it on the back of their receipt. And they think they're very clever, which is something I always do because I think I'm very clever. And so, you have some of those comments that happen. And everybody sort of, pats themselves on the back. Hey, nice job. You said the right words at the right time. Well done. Exactly what happened here. We have chairman of the Ways and Means Committee now colluding with the OLC to get Trump's taxes. We'll see where it goes. Treasury sought this office's advice. Are we allowed to do this? She goes through, says, yep, no problem at all. Office provided the Treasury more detailed opinion, saying as long as it's the actual purpose was not only reasonable, but correct, then they're allowed to do it. The committee sued to enforce its subpoenas. Let's see what else is going on here. They asked for some more reviews. The statute here is unambiguous, so they go back to the code. They say, upon written request of the chairman of one of 3 congressional tax committees, the secretary, quote, shall furnish the tax information. Right? That's according to U.S. code. So she's going in, digging that out. The 2019, they say, so they're reversing a prior opinion. The big problem with this is that anytime you come into power, right now, this sort of opens the door for all of this moving forward. So as soon as Republicans seize control of the House of Representatives, which is probably going to happen in, 18 months or so, then they now will take control of the Ways and Means Committee. And guess what happens then? Well, as long as, they set this standard now that essentially you can get tax records for the president even, as long as you're considering some legislation that has a legitimate purpose. So as soon as the Republicans sweep into power, they're going to say, hey, Joe Biden, your OLC said that we're allowed to do this. And they're going to do it. And they're going to go after all the Democrats and say, well, we need the vice president's tax records, or we need this information about this person. And they're going to sort of, compare and contrast it to some of these other things. And the Republicans are going to use it all day long, which is part of the problem and why these things are not particularly effective. Applying the proper degree of deference to the committee, we believe there is ample basis to conclude that its June 2021 request would further the committee's principal stated objective of what? Assessing the IRS's presidential audit program, a plainly legitimate area for congressional inquiry and possible legislation. Chairman's additional stated objectives for reviewing that tax information are also legitimate, and the committee has individual authority to seek records for those reasons as well. Even if some members of Congress hope to see information from the president's tax returns on public record merely for the sake of exposure, that would not invalidate the legitimate objectives that the committee in receipt of the information could serve. See what happened there? So she says, yes, even if the true reason, she didn't say this, but this is what she's saying. Even if the real reason why they want these tax records is just because they want to shove their thumb right in Trump's eyeball, that's okay, as long as they have another legitimate reason. We see this all the time in criminal law, right? They'll pull people over for a tail light, or they'll pull you over for a wide right turn. Oh, no, we had to stop you for that reason. That's not the real reason they stop you. It's a pretextual stop. They just watched you leave that marijuana store, or they watched you leave that bar. They're going to stop you and investigate you for a DUI, but they can't pull you over for DUI on suspicion of leaving a bar. That's not justification enough. So then they make up some nonsense reason for actually pulling you over, and then they can proceed with their investigation. Same thing's happening here. They're saying, oh no, we have a legitimate reason to get those documents. Don Johnson says, you sure do. You're thinking about a legislation. You're a congressperson. So that's great you're thinking about it. Totally legitimate, totally reasonable. Whatever you need, just go get it. I know that you're going to disclose this to the Washington Post, New York Times, and CNN. But as long as you stick to your original story that, well, we're just contemplating a new bill, then you're totally covered and kosher. No problem at all. Acting Assistant Attorney General Don Johnson, for the foregoing reasons, we conclude that the Secretary must comply with the Ways and Means Committee pursuant to U.S. Code. Furnish the committee with the specified tax returns and related information. Don Johnson, over here, she is super lawyer for the Biden administration. Just whatever you need. She is like Gumby. She can twist herself into a pretzel to make anything happen for them at all. And so this is a problem for the DOJ, in my opinion. It's not, because this is how the DOJ is now. The DOJ is sort of a weaponized political institution that both political sides of the aisle use to smack the other side. And so, unfortunately for the people in the DOJ, they have to live with this organization that is sort of flip-flopping all of the time. And so we know that a prior opinion from 2019 conducted by the DOJ, conducted by their lawyers and all the smart people in there, concluded that it was not appropriate for partisan hacks in Congress to get their enemies' tax documents. Not appropriate. But as soon as the changing of the guard happened, DOJ shifts, we get a new bureaucrat in there, and so they just reverse everything that the same DOJ said in 2019. Almost reminds you of the CDC, just sort of changing everything. Right? It doesn't matter. Oh, masks on, masks off, 2 masks, 3 masks. Don't mask again. Vaccines work. Now they sort of, they work, but with some precautions on there. And so it's constant uncertainty, constant changing, and we know that it's not based in principles. It's based in politics, which is exactly why it's happening. Let's take a look at some questions over from watchingthewatchers.locals.com. Let's see what we've got here in the house. We got several of them coming in from Sharon Quidney. Says, why should they stop at Trump and his immediate supporters? If they open this door, then we are all in danger of being harassed and prosecuted. How can this be legal? Is there some legal recourse? Well, Donald Trump is going to be allowed to contest this. And certainly he'll be able to go. So remember, this is just a legal opinion, right? This is just an opinion that came out of the executive branch. So Donald Trump could certainly, sue the government and say, nope, they're releasing my private information. And he may already be doing that. I'm not real sure where that's at, but certainly he could ask for an injunction from, basically file a suit from the clerk or the secretary or whoever received the order to release the documents from the IRS, an injunction to stop that transmission from happening. So Trump may be, already working through that. I don't know. But I think the point of this is once that document hits the Democrats, it's now going to be, publicly available and available for everybody. So it's going to be a continued spectacle. Let's see. We've got Thunder 7 in the house. Says, Rob, you missed my question last section. Sorry about that, Thunder 7. Not the first time. Oh, well, no big deal. They've been searching for a crime to indict Trump for 5 years. Never happened, never will, because he's done nothing illegal. Would love to see Hunter Biden's taxes, though. Yeah, I wonder if this might be... So first of all, Thunder 7, I apologize that I keep missing your questions. That's not appropriate. But I sort of botched that. So that's my fault because I opened the form late. And I'll do better. But the point here is your question, I think, is pertinent, right? They have been trying to indict this man. They've tried to impeach him twice. They are going after his CFO's grandkids at a private school. They are grasping and grasping and grasping. They haven't found anything. They even had to manufacture stuff with the Steele dossier and Lisa Page and Peter Strzok and the whole debacle with the FBI to try to essentially set something up that we've all seen has fallen through and been a useless waste of time and resources. If you're being nice about it, and something that is an absolute travesty of justice, it is a weaponization of the FBI and our Justice Department against political enemies, which is a anti-American problem in this country. So I agree that they have gone hog wild to try to get something on Donald Trump, and they just haven't been able to find it. At this point in time, I think that the tax thing might just be a red herring. I think that the Democrats might like to just constantly be fighting over this. Donald Trump won't release his taxes, and Donald Trump keeps it. It reminds me of the Obama birth certificate thing, right? This thing that was always floating around that everybody sort of liked to pick up and run with. If the tax records come out, is there going to be anything in them? I don't even know. Good to see you, Thunder 7. Sorry I missed your questions. Peely Wally says, the way the Democrats act regarding Trump makes my blood boil. I do hope that Trump runs and wins in 2024 and then launches a full investigation into the Biden crime family. Well, look, if that happens, right, if Trump does win, the Democrats are laying down the train tracks for all sorts of inquisitions back into their administration because they did it to Donald Trump. They can't. If Donald Trump turns around and does this to all of the Democrats, everybody's going to turn around and start screaming from the rooftops. This is a dictatorship. This is somebody who is seizing control of the power of the power of the country, and they are, sort of seizing democracy away from everybody else. And not really, because the Democrats are doing that. Trump can just use the same mechanisms that they are using, and I think he has a little bit of criticism armor as a result. Saw a super chat come in from Kareem165. Says, the more these crooks go after Trump, the more popular he gets. They are afraid to go on a level playing field against him in 2024. I think so. I agree with that, actually. I think what you're seeing now is a lot of persuasion. They're doing everything they can now to make sure that all the jabs and arrows, all the barbs are being stuck in Donald Trump right now, because they know after 2022, the tides are going to shift and they're going to lose some of the tools that exist in their tool belt. So all of this is taking place right now. We're seeing these OLC memos. We're seeing a lot of the framework being laid right now, because in 2022, if it continues to go this way, I think there's going to be a red wave that wipes out Democratic power for the foreseeable future. Great question. Let's see what else we have here. We got a couple more coming in. We had a super chat. Got that one from Kareem. Let's see what else. Over at watchingthewatchers.locals.com, we've got LT13 says, do they even have time to look at Trump's taxes? It's taking them years to go through Hunter Biden's. I would assume their workload is too much. Well, LT13, I get it, but you're presuming that they're going to read anything. Like, they've got a 2,700 page bill that is now on their desk, and they're all just going to say, we're not reading. Did you read that? No, I didn't read it either. And so you're just going to have all of these senators who are sort of like mutiny in the classroom. They're not going to read it. So they are going to read Trump's taxes because that's more interesting. It's sort of like the comic book versus the biology book, right? Which one are you going to pick? The Democrats, we know where they're going on that. So they'll carve out time for that. I'm not worried about that. We have Want to Know says, how does a normal person afford her? Got to give her credit for supplying the answer her client wants. She's good at it. Yeah. She's very good. Don Johnson, Gumby lawyer extraordinaire. Very good. Want to Know says, how does a normal person... Oh, already got that one. Sorry about that, Want to Know. Let's see. Here we got Sharon Quidney says, remember that quote, show me the man, and I'll show you the crime. That's from Sharon Quidney on Trump's taxes. That's right. They can find anything. Hunter Biden's here. Oh, perfect. Says, I'm glad Dad got me off the hook for my crimes. I love having the DOJ focus on Trump, which allows me to paint in peace. If I need legal counsel in the future, I'll be sure to hit up your firm, Robert. That's from Hunter Biden over here. Well, okay, so that's fine. He'll give us a call, and we'll have to talk. About that one, I guess. I'll tell our team here. Be prepared for that. Don't come into our office, okay? Just send me an email. All right, Hunter. All right, we have Joe Biden's here. It says, Robert, come on, man. This is totally not a political prosecution. I'm not trying to send my political opponents into a gulag. Come on, man. No Doubt says, don't we have some law that prevents the government from using their powers to target an individual? Isn't that why she qualifies her answer with a good faith statement? What options does an individual have to fight this type of overreach? Well, so, it's a good question, no doubt. I think, my hot take on it is sort of what I was saying earlier, that Donald Trump could, file. Again, this is a legal opinion, right? This is an opinion that came over from the Office of Legal Counsel. It's advice to the DOJ. The DOJ is taking that advice, but they are still the government. And so Donald Trump, as the recipient of this, is essentially, it would be a plaintiff. He'd be filing to say the government is violating my constitutional rights to privacy. I've got protection against this thing from happening, and make his argument under the law, right? He can write, his attorneys could write a contrary memorandum. They could say, no, we looked at that code that Don Johnson had pulled out of, wherever she got that. And we can say our interpretation of this is different, that political hacks in Congress don't just get unfettered access to whatever documents they want. Otherwise, there's a very, very big danger here that partisan political hacks on both sides of the aisle, Republicans and Democrats, will use this stuff for nefarious purposes. They're going to use their newly found powers to just go get whatever they want, and that's going to be a big problem. So Trump and his attorneys could certainly file that memo. They could ask for an injunction to stop the IRS from sending the documents, from actually transmitting the documents back over to the Ways and Means Committee. But outside of that, right, it is what it is. It's the government that's writing a memo about something that it wants to do anyways. It's the executive branch sort of trying to collude here with the legislative branch, and they're using the IRS to do it. They're saying, hey, we need a lawyer. We need some information on this. Can we send it over? Executive sends it over to their attorney. Attorney goes to the enforcement arm of tax law, the IRS, analyzes it, sends it over to a co-equal branch, the legislative branch, whatever you need. And all of this is being done to win a political war against a political enemy. Legislation. Give me a stinking break here. All right, that was from No Doubt. We have Sharon Quidney says, and as far as the Republicans coming into power in 2022, I don't think that's happening. The Dems won't let it happen. That's a good point, Sharon. If their secret cabal that was in cahoots during the last election that Time Magazine reported on and many others, maybe you're right. I don't know. But if the current trajectory keeps going, I can't see how there is not just a swarm of red that seizes the country. Be Brave says, what legitimate purpose could they have for obtaining former president tax returns? They are scared of their own people. They're saying that it has to do with the IRS oversight and auditing Donald Trump and people who are presidents. That's their justification for it. If you believe that, well, that's a whole separate thing. Let's see here. I've got an off-topic question. Let's come back to that one. We've got chairman of the board says, weaponizing the IRS and taxes against a private citizen. Sounds familiar. Like Obama versus the Tea Party familiar. Yep, I remember that. Right? IRS. I say this all the time. When the government touches you inappropriately, it's through the IRS or through law enforcement. If they can't get you through law enforcement, they'll get you through the IRS. We have here, remember that time they accused Trump of weaponizing the situation in the Ukraine versus a, quote, political adversary? Ah, yes, good times. Rules for thee, but not for me. Seems to be the normal theme at play. That's from chairman of the board. Good to see you, chairman. It's a great point. And I'm glad you're here. Thank you for that. Let's go to this off-topic question from Trump. Trump says, Rob, please review the video from July 29th involving Gates, Gosar, Gohmert, Green. They were trespassed from a federal building while attempting to check on the January 6 prisoners. Supervisor asked them to step outside, lock the doors. There was an attorney attempting to visit a client. Would love your thoughts on this. Thanks. So Trump. It's a good question, right? Now, I think I was doing a hot take on this, and I don't know what the special powers of Congress are, right? And so there are a lot of caveats here. I don't know what Gates and Gosar and what jail facility they were at or anything like that. But if they were expecting to just go get access to the prisoners, like if they scheduled an unscheduled, event, if they thought that without scheduling something that they could just sort of walk into a prison and just get access to the cells and just go like take a look around, right? I've never seen or heard of anything like that happening ever, right? You just don't get access to that. Now, I don't know if as Congress people or if they're on, some sort of, justice committee or something like that, if they have any special privileges as members of Congress in DC to go and, inspect those things, or if they have any special immunities or anything like that, right? I can't speak to that. I don't know. Never heard of anything like that. But just from a practical standpoint, it seemed more like a political spectacle. Now, not that it's a bad thing, right? I think that they're sort of the principle of the matter is spot on. And I've been screaming about what's happening with the January 6th defendants for months now, many months. And I do think that they're being treated inappropriately. I do think that there are due process violations. I do think that they should have been released on bond. Many other people have been released on bond or released on recognizance, for crying out loud. The penalties seem to be inappropriate. We saw a lot of people, Antifa, BLM, people who were throwing Molotov cocktails at the federal court buildings, and many others getting very nice deals, whereas the January 6th defendants, not so much. That's a problem. But if we are expecting Gates, Gosar, Gohmert, or Green, or any of those people to just walk in, hey, I'm from Congress, let me in, show me around the facilities, that's not a practical thing. If you've ever been to a jail or a prison, it doesn't work like that, right? There's layers of security, and it just doesn't work like that. So I'm not sure what they were expecting. They probably wanted some camera stuff to take place, and they got that. So good question. Thank you for that. That was from, let's see, who was that from? That was from Trump. Good to see you there, Trump. All right, my friends. That was more great questions over from watchingthewatchers.locals.com. And as I was wrapping that up, another super chat came in. Thank you. Jupaz here says, anyone that doesn't realize we have made strides in putting a tyrannical government in is not paying attention. The government has gotten too big. Couldn't agree with you more on that there. That was from Jupa, and that was a super chat that came in over from YouTube, and thank you for that. Those are now active and available, and I appreciate your support there, Jupa. We had Kareem and Just Cause as well. Also appreciate all of you for your support with a vault and others. All right. So thank you for all of those questions. Watchingthewatchers.locals.com. Thanks so much for watching. Before you head out, I want to just remind you that I am a criminal defense lawyer here in Scottsdale, Arizona, where my team and we've got a long history of helping good people facing criminal charges to find safety, clarity, and hope in their cases and beyond that in their lives. Our phone number for a free case evaluation is 480-787-0394. You can also find us online at www.rrlawaz.com. We can help with any type of criminal charge in the state of Arizona, things like DUI, drug offenses, misdemeanor offenses. And we can also help with clearing up old case records, like expunging cases or making sure that you can restore your rights so that you can vote again or possess a firearm again or apply for some other federal benefits. We can remove mugshots off the internet. Basically, anytime that you or somebody you know or love is in trouble with the law in the state of Arizona, we have an amazing team of people. We would just love the opportunity to help. And our phone number, of course, 480-787-0394. And if you don't need any legal services, that's a very good thing. But you may be interested in some informational offerings so that you are prepared if you do have to deal with the police. And of course, I want to invite you to head on over to gumroad.com/Robert Gruler. You'll notice here, I've got several different trainings that are available, including the law enforcement interaction training. This is the 1, 2, 3 rule for dealing with the police. It's one rule you need, 2 questions that the police can ask of you, and 3 responses if they ask you a problematic question. So that's available now. You can also get a load at my personal productivity system here called Existence Systems. Fun little course. And then we have here, if you're a lawyer or a legal professional, be sure to check out this program. We are meeting twice every month. Again, all of this over at gumroad.com/Robert Gruler. And if none of that sounds any good to you, well, just go ahead and give us a follow, because I'm working on some other products and some other offerings. And of course, if you have not already done so, I want to invite you one more time to head on over to watchingthewatchers.locals.com. It's where you can support the show, and it's where we can connect. We've got monthly Zoom meetings and a lot of other goodies coming up. So I look forward to seeing you there. Thank you so much for watching, and for all of your love and support. I will see you on the next one.